Everybody really appreciates us doing it.
Please rise for the invocation by Reverend Hilda Bailey, Associate Pastor, Clinton Tabernacle AME Zion Church.
Bow your heads with me, please. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the heavens. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this city council meeting, oh God. Ask your blessings, Lord, upon the business of this meeting. And we thank you, Father, for those who serve in different capacities, Lord, throughout the city. There are some who stand out in the spotlight. And Father, there are some behind closed doors that some may not know about. But Father, we thank you for them too. I ask you to bless Hickory as a whole. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a special presentation this evening. I'm going to call on Lieutenant Vidal Sipe from our police department, and he's going to present the recognition that the city recently won.
Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, good evening. Tonight I just want to recognize some of the individuals at the police department that's doing an outstanding job. Last time I've been up here, we spoke about Street Crimes Unit, and of course we're going to speak about Street Crimes Unit again on how well they're actually doing. Just a little background. The Street Crime Interdiction Unit at the Hickory Police Department began in 2006. Their primary objective was to disrupt gang-related activity through proactive enforcement, education, prevention, intervention, and suppression. The unit, led by Sergeant Jeff Medley, as I call their names, I'm going to ask for them guys to come up behind me here or beside me, either way. Sergeant Jeff Medley, he's a supervisor over the Street Crimes Unit. Master Police Officer Mike Chris, he is currently in Afghanistan with the U.S. Army, so he'll be gone for a little while from us. Master Police Officer Daniel Orders and Officer Gordon Killian. The street crime unit varies from week to week with their schedule, which allows these officers to work based on what is happening in the city of Hickory. So they don't have a specific schedule. Sergeant Medley, he sort of looks through the reports and things to see what's going on, and he guides his schedule to the needs of the city as time goes on. They consistently work one weeknight each weekend. They focus on high crime and gang areas in the city. By having a regular presence in these areas, the officers are able to deter crime, but also make arrests before situations get out of control as needed. The Street Crimes Unit is a part of a county-wide gang task force, which we have the only, I would call, professional gang unit, what some like to call it within the county, Street Crimes Interdiction Unit. I know we don't like to call it the gang unit, but that's their primary focus. And with this unit, their artificial gang unit within the Catawba County. They're the go-to unit, as we call them at the Hickory Police Department. Anything that goes on, we sort of shy everything over to them, and then these guys handle a lot of that for the police department. Presentations, anything that's going on, whether it's gang-related or street crimes related, we have these guys actually present to it. They are also the ones that are in charge of the call-ins for the police department. I know last time we had Charles Mackey up here. These guys are the ones that are actually out there arresting these folks and getting them involved in that program. This year they have won, through the State of North Carolina Gang Association, they have won the Gang Unit of the Year for the state of North Carolina. And that's what we'd like to recognize these guys for tonight. Not just for local departments, but throughout the state of North Carolina. These guys have done an outstanding job, and we appreciate their hard work and dedication that they have been doing. And just like to bring them up here in front of you guys and just recognize them for tonight. And this is the actual plaque that they have received from the Gang Association, and I'll pass it around here in a second. and I'll just read it off for you. It's, from North Carolina Gang Investigative Association, be it known in the recognition of special achievements and recognition commensurate with the role of criminal justice, professional and personal devotion in service to the people of North Carolina, the President of the Board of Achievements and Recognition of the State of North Carolina Gang Investigative Association, through the authority invested in them as leading authority in the criminal street gangs in the state, do hereby award Hickory Police Department Street Crimes Interdiction Unit this Gang Unit of the Year. And that was last month. We actually went to a meeting down in Greensboro, and these guys were presented in front of the association. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Sergeant Medley, didn't you have a speech?
Yes, sir.
That's a little inside joke we have with Sergeant Medley in his speeches. The next recognition, I'd like to just give a brief background. Sarah Nelson, she's the Gang of One coordinator at the police department. She joined the HPD in September of 2010 after working 6 years with the Department of Juvenile Justice as a juvenile court counselor. One main reason for her wanting to become a Gang of One coordinator, she wanted to work with the youth before they got involved in gangs and legal trouble. Sarah, I always tell her and I always pat her on the back, which she always says, Lieutenant Sipe, don't always pat me on the back. I don't care about doing this. I love doing this job, which is what I like so much about her. She's responsible for providing gang awareness presentations to the community. She has completed presentations at middle schools, high schools for faculty and students, local colleges, Alexander Juvenile Detention Center, the Hickory Police Department Citizen Police Academy, mental health agencies, DSS. In January 2013, she updated the presentation to include current information, videos, and reference you would be able to relate to. Sarah has attended multiple community events where she utilizes a display board, handout brochures, and coloring books, and interacts with the community about what they do or can be involved within helping to decrease gang activity. Since there is a link between bullying and gangs, she created a bullying presentation that she uses in the schools and for parents at conferences. She facilitated 2 weekly after-school programs during the 2012-2013 school year. One after-school group was held at the Ross Center, a community building on Ridgecrest Hickory housing property. Children who reside at Ridgecrest, who are ages 6 to 17, were allowed to attend. Sarah would open the center up for the children for 2 hours each week and then help them with their homework or play games with them. The second after-school group was held at the Ridgeview Recreation Center as a partnership between HPD, Gang of One, and the Hickory Park and Recreations. This group was open to all youth in Hickory in ages grades 6 to 12. Sarah and other Hickory police officers met with the youth for 2 hours each week to help them with their homework and play games. One of the officers helped a high school senior write her personal essay for college application, and she was accepted into 5 different schools. This group was brand new for the 2012-2013 year, but while this group was small, 9 youth attended the overall course. It has continued support from the HPD and Hickory Parks Recreation to be held 2013-2014 school year. In September 2012, Sarah partnered with David Packed officers who are assigned to the Ridgeview area for a backpack project. School supplies were donated to HPD for local businesses, and Sarah sorted, inventoried, and organized all the supplies. She, 3 officers, and a lieutenant went out on 2 different days and delivered the backpacks to the youth within the Ridgeview area. Sarah is a point of contact for the people in the community to call with questions. She maintained positive relations with the school resource officers, not only in Hickory Public School System, but also in Catawba County school systems. She is a member of the Catawba County Juvenile Prevention Council, where she serves as an outreach committee chairperson since 2012. She has also been elected to serve a second term, 2013-2014. Sarah is a member of the Save Kids of Catawba County Coalition, is responsible for a gang prevention and bullying prevention component also. What Sarah does, she does a lot with her gang unit also, and throughout the Gang Investigators Association, she was nominated the Civilian of the Year for North Carolina for the Gang Association. So I'd like to thank her for her job that she does at the police department. And her plaque is also from the North Carolina Gang Investigators Association. Greetings, be it known in recognition of special achievements and recognition commensurate with the role of criminal justice professional and personal devotion and service to the people of North Carolina. The President and Board of Achievements in recognition of the North Carolina Gang Investigators Association, through the authority vested in them as leading authority in criminal street gangs in the state, do hereby award Sarah Nelson, Gang of One Coordinator, Hickory Police Department, Civilian of the Year. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
That concludes my recognitions. Thank you.
Let's see. We have Charlotte Williams here from LR. And could you tell us a little bit about your students who are here?
We have our HCS 318 Community Studies class. This is a class where we learn about different types of communities and especially looking at the city, the Hickory, the county, and actually even the state in terms of government structure and how decisions are made. Hopefully they can learn how things get done, how the city is run, how we operate. Thank you.
Great. Okay. And the Scouts. Could we get some Scouts to introduce themselves and tell us what troop you're from?
My name is Dylan Cody. I'm from Troop 234 at First United Methodist Church here in Hickory, and I'm here for citizenship in the community merit badge.
I'm Robert Hullett with Troop 345. I'm the Assistant Scoutmaster. And we've got 2 scouts here with the Communications Merit Badge.
Okay. Did that include the back row?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all of you for being here. Any persons requesting to be heard? Motion to approve the minutes?
I move. Second.
Motion by Mrs. Fox, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That is unanimous. Mr. Seaver is not present tonight. Motion to reaffirm and ratify on second reading?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Guest, second by Ms. Patton. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. Anything to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to be approved.
Motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mr. Lael. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous. So we're already over on page 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. New business. First item of business is a public hearing, and I'll ask the city's principal planner, Mr. Cal Overby, to come to the podium and present that item to council prior to opening the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Wright, council members, Mr. Crum. The item before you is a request for a voluntary satellite annexation from Venture Properties 5, LLC. The entity is requesting to annex a piece of property located at 2615 Springs Road Northeast. As you notice, this is recently subdivided from 2633, which is basically you have Shell's Barbecue and a single-story brick home in its development site between those 2 properties. The annexation area is approximately 1.65 acres in size. It's basically immediately adjacent to another annexation area, but it's also 150 feet from the nearest area. It's kind of a little spotted little area there with respect to the annexation area. The request for petition is in order to obtain sewer service from the city of Hickory. Currently, the property is vacant, but it's currently under construction for the site of a 12,500 square foot retail building. To give you kind of some areas where we're at, this is the property in question here. The yellow area is showing ETJ. This will be showing our current city boundary. With respect to zone, as you can see, pretty much the corridor along Springs Road is on commercial corridor, which is a commercial zoning designation for the city of Hickory. The area shown in the yellow color is residential. This is another type of residential, and this is a different type of commercial zone, which is typically located at the convergence of 2 major intersections. And this would be the ortho photograph of the area showing surrounding land uses. This is basically a fresh air galaxy. This would be Burger King. Shell's Barbecue is in this area. Again, the single-story brick home is here, and this would be the development site at this point here. And residential in these areas back here, up in this area, more vacant property, and more commercial as you travel to the northeast on Springs Road. With that, staff has done the analysis of the requested annexation and found that it meets the requirements necessary for annexation under general statutes, and also the adequate public services are available to serve the property should the City Council vote to annex the property. With that being said, I will close and say staff does recommend approval, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions.
Do we know who the tenants are going to be?
Yes, sir. It's a Dollar General store.
Okay.
And it's they've got it in the dry now, and it's being bricked. I think it was being bricked this afternoon when I passed by it.
What's the county zoning?
Sir?
It's now in the county, right?
No, sir. It was under ETJ previously.
ETJ. Okay.
Thank you.
During the public hearing, we first allow those who are opposed to a proposal to speak, and then those who are in favor. We ask that each side limit their comments to 15 minutes, but we always want to make sure everyone is heard who needs to be heard. If more than one person chooses to speak, we ask that you allocate your time so it doesn't exceed 15 minutes. With that, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if there's, and we also ask no cheering, no jeering, no, this is not a popularity contest. With that, I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if anyone would like to speak against this proposal. Is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? There being no one desiring to speak, I declare the public...
Got a question. I was having a hard time hearing. Is he proposing to install or to build a Dollar General in that location? I was having a hard time hearing. Is that what you're...
Yeah, the proposal is there will be a Dollar General built in that location.
The actual proposal is for annexation to get them sewer.
Which is the company allowing them to use city waters and stuff like that? Thank you.
I've asked if anyone wanted to speak for this proposal. Did I?
Yes.
Well, I declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
I would move approval of the voluntary annexation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lael, second by Mrs. Patton. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion carries.
Second public hearing this evening, I'll ask the city's community development manager, David Leonetti, to come to the podium. Mr. Leonetti will present to the council the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development required report called the Community Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, or acronym CAPER, which is a requirement of the city's Community Development Block Grant Program.
Thank you, Mr. Berry, Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Crone. As Mr. Berry said, I'm here to very briefly present to you the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. We call it the CAPER for short. This is a report that is required of all entitlement communities that receive community development block grant funding. And as you all know, we are an entitlement recipient and have been since, I believe, 1982. Basically, what this report is a explanation and evaluation of all the money that we spent on our community development activities during the past fiscal year. So July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013 is what the activities that this report covers. Over that time period, the city spent, all of the exact figures are in your packets too. I'm going to kind of speak a little bit more in just approximations. The city spent $470,555.91 in CDBG funds during fiscal year 12-13. In terms of what we spent that money on, housing rehabilitation accounted for a little over $100,000 of our roughly $104,000. of our spending. That included 7 homes being rehabilitated, and it also included an additional 3 homes that were rehabilitated with a revolving loan that is given to Habitat for Humanity each year. So really 10 total homes were rehabbed for that $104,000. $22,000 of our funding went towards the city's down payment assistance program, which provides eligible first-time home buyers an interest-free deferred loan that sits as a second mortgage on their houses in order to lower the principal payment on those and make those a little bit more affordable. That enabled us to help 7 first-time home buyers achieve home ownership during the fiscal year 12-13. Roughly $55,000 was used for the purchase of a home for rehab. That house has gone out to bid and will be rehabbed during the fall, and then that house will be then resold to a first-time home buyer or a low and moderate income home buyer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a first-time home buyer. The city also, as you all know, operates a public services initiative every year by granting funds to nonprofits. There were 5 nonprofits that were assisted during the fiscal year. The City of Refuge received a little over $3,000 to help run an after-school program in the Ridgeview community. Exodus Homes received roughly $14,600 in order to provide employment and transportation coordination services for their substance abuse counseling program, that is a residential substance abuse program that's geared towards homeless and previously incarcerated persons suffering from substance abuse issues. The Hickory Soup Kitchen received $12,500 in order to help defray their operating costs. Alpha, which is AIDS Leadership Foothills Area Alliance. I'm terrible at remembering that acronym. I think I just butchered it. But they received a grant for $12,000 to provide case management services for persons living with HIV and AIDS within our community. And Cooperative Christian Ministries received a grant for $8,200 to provide prescription drugs through their health clinic for low and moderate income individuals. The other projects that were undertaken with funds during this time period, we had 3 public facility projects. The first was not necessarily a project yet, more of an acquisition, but it was a $100,000 loan to the Hickory Soup Kitchen to assist in their purchase of a building that will be eventually used as an expanded facility for their operations. Approximately $38,000 was used to construct a parking lot within the Ridgeview community behind the former Ridgeview Public Library that's currently in the process of being redeveloped into a neighborhood center. So this parking lot is going to be used to provide parking for that, as well as probably some of the other businesses and homes in the immediate vicinity. And then approximately $23,000 was used to construct roughly 1,100 linear feet of sidewalk running along Main Avenue Southeast from 6th Street Place to 8th Street Southeast. And then the other activities undertaken was just program administration, which was roughly $73,000, and some advertising of fair housing, which was about $819 that we ran some ads in the newspaper informing citizens of their fair housing rights. That concludes all of our activities that were included in the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leonetti. I now declare the public hearing open and ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak against this report. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this report? I'll declare the public hearing closed and ask for motion or discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Guest, second by Mrs. Fox. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion is carried.
The next item for consideration is a departmental report, and I'll ask the city's Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Mac McLeod, to come to the podium and present a purchase agreement in the amount of $710,000 to provide lighting at the soccer fields at the Henry Fork River Regional Recreation Park. Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mayor Wright, members of council, Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, good evening. I'd like to spend a few minutes with you tonight discussing approval of a purchase agreement with Musco Sports Lighting. And the request that before you tonight is your consideration and approval on first reading of a purchase agreement with Musco Sports Lighting in the amount of $710,000 for the purchase and installation of soccer field lights at Henry Fork River Regional Recreation Park. What I'd like to do is give you a little history about what brought us to this point. The park opened in 2000, and currently we have 7 existing soccer fields with an 8th field that's currently under construction. Lights were installed on field number 1, which is our premier field, in 2001 using Musco Sports Lighting equipment. Field number 1 is designated as a game-only field, which really prohibits its use for any practices. So practice and game usage on the remaining 6 unlit fields is very limited during the fall, both the fall and the spring seasons. The park has been a home playing site for the Catawba Valley Youth Soccer Association, more commonly known as CBYSA, since 2001, and CBYSA actually contributed $163,000 toward the development of the park. And actually, the city's partnership with Catawba Valley Youth Soccer Association actually goes back further than that, when it was Catawba Valley Blast Soccer Club first formed, and then there was the Unifor Heat, which were 2 separate organizations. Both played games at various places out of Neil Clark, and in 1998 both organizations came together and formed the Catawba Valley Youth Soccer Association. So we've been a partner with CBYSA for going on almost 17 years now. CBYSA practices are held at Neil Clark Junior Recreation Park for the majority of both the fall and spring soccer season. In fact, at that complex we have 4 lighted soccer fields. What the project before you tonight will do, will upgrade the existing lights on field number 1, basically bringing those lights, which are almost 14 years old, up to the current technology that we proposed on fields 2, 4, and 5. Just to try and give you a little layout. This is field number 1, which I mentioned earlier. It is the only lighted field we have. What we're lighting is also would propose to upgrade the lights on field number 1, install lights on field number 2, 4, 5, and 6. The plans is to basically piggyback field 4. We will add lights onto the existing poles on field 1 that'll take care of half of field 4. Likewise, we'll add piggyback lights on field 4 to take care of half of field 5. So it's a total of 12 additional poles that we'll be installing. Just a little bit about the purchase and installation. Purchase is being accomplished through an agreement with Musco Sports Lighting through the interlocal purchasing systems, better known as TIPS TAPS. And TIPS TAPS provides purchasing co-ops that are beneficial to both the vendors and members by meeting all competitive bid requirements. And there's no cost for the membership to the City of Hickory, nor does it obligate the City of Hickory to purchase through the co-op. City Council at your June 14th meeting approved membership into the TIPS TAPS program. Musco is providing not only the purchase and installation of the equipment, but also the design and the layout for all 5 fields. All 5 fields will be lighted to 30-foot candles for 25 years, which are guaranteed light levels for those 25 years throughout 10,000 hours of use. And then all 5 fields are covered under Musco's 25-year warranty with no field light maintenance costs for those 25 years, which means covered under that warranty are the poles, the fixtures, the lamps, and the ballast are all covered under the warranty. Our target completion date is February 15, 2014. That's contingent on weather. We hope to get it done for you. That's just contingent on weather. So what are the opportunities that come about with the lighting of these fields? Well, you can see a commitment by CBYSA of $125,000 towards the purchase and installation of the soccer field lights. So we continue our partnership with CBYSA. The City of Hickory's $585,000 cost share is appropriated in our current fiscal year. What a partnership with CBYSA does is that this project, the purchase and installation, then is not totally dependent on public dollars for the project. All CBYSA functions will then be relocated to Henry Fork. We'll move all functions there. And what this does, it allows for much needed space at Neil Clark for our growing youth lacrosse program. Right now, both programs have to share the 4 fields out of Neil Clark. And I'm going to tell you, if you've ever been out there, parking gets to be interesting, but also with the number of kids out there and lacrosse balls and soccer balls flying back and forth, it does get interesting. The fields do get heavily used. What it also does is allow for expansion of our Bumblebee soccer program, which we play out at Henry Ford. We've been out there for probably 5 years or so. It's our 5 and 6-year-old program. Currently, what we have to do, we have to shorten that. We have to shorten that program the farther along we get into the fall season, simply because of darkness. With the lights on the field, we won't have to do that anymore, and really won't have to keep them on one field. We can expand. Their usage. It also allows for the extension of the operating hours for the park for those patrons that currently utilize the paved walking trails at the park. Right now, our park hours are based on time of the year. Currently closed at 8 o'clock. It eventually gets back to 6 o'clock. What this will allow it to do is extend those hours longer, and also allow other users of the park to take advantage of it. What it does is also allow for potential growth of tournament plays. We currently have three major events that are held out at the complex. The Rotary Club of Lake Hickory's Galaxy Shootout Soccer Tournament, which is held in April of every year. CBYSA has an Autumn Blast Soccer Tournament, which is held in November of every year. And then this past May, Foothills Lacrosse had a Raised by the River lacrosse tournament. We had about 35 teams there at the complex for a lacrosse tournament. So it basically just gives those programs and those tournaments an opportunity to expand. So for that, staff recommends approval of the purchase and agreement with Musco Sports Lighting for the purchase and installation of soccer field lights at Henry Fork River Regional Recreation Park. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Mac, how did our property out there fare in the big rains?
It flooded. We were about.
It's all floodplain. Isn't it?
We've had two. We've been first time we were about 8 feet underwater. Second time we were about 6 feet underwater out there. So we just know every time every time we get heavy rains, we just anticipate the fields. But really, they hold up. They hold up good. And really, if there's anything that comes out of that, is once we just clean all the debris off, we actually leave the silt on the fields and let it perk down. We use it as top dressing. So that's good. We take advantage of the sand that ends up on the fields.
Well, I think this is long overdue. This is an economic driver. It brings people into Hickory, and that's an important factor. And in a community where the conversation is about exercise, this just gives us the ability to expand these programs for all ages. I'm 100% in favor. It's a long overdue.
I agree, especially when you look at these tournaments that they have, the heads and beds of people coming here, they stay, they spend their money, and it's a wonderful economic driver here.
Yeah, our Rotary tournament had the Gallop shootout, and we had sometimes had 80 and 90 teams, and you'd think of 14 kids on a team, parents, maybe grandparents, and most of the hotel rooms are full in our area. Yeah, so that's good.
Now, is the electrical for that all underground, and is that part of the deal? They do.
Yes, sir. It's all underground. Everything's underground. Okay. Everything's underground. It's a total turnkey project.
And also, are those fields exclusive for soccer?
No, sir. We play lacrosse. We play lacrosse on there. Like I said, we had the tournament play. We've used them. They've been used for ultimate frisbee before. Their primary has been soccer, but we have a. If you come out there for our annual Easter egg hunt, we had 20,000 eggs on those soccer fields every Easter. So they're used for other things besides soccer.
I just want to make that point that they are versatile and they can be used for other things.
Yes, sir.
Will this move you said the soccer associations will all be out here out at Neil Clark. Will that be left just for lacrosse or other soccer?
It'll be what'll happen in the fall. In the fall, we run our fall program in the fall. What it'll allow during the spring is youth lacrosse to actually have dedicated field space. Right now, they're having to during the spring they have to share with CBYSA because we have a priority use agreement, so they have to share fields. What this is going to do, you take the number of kids we got lacrosse, they're basically right now having to double up on fields. This basically they're going to be able to increase going from 2 to 4 fields that we can run our lacrosse program on. And that is lacrosse, Neil Clark, and that is their practice and game location. And also what it's going to do is going to help us out from a turf grass management standpoint. The amount of use we get out of Neil Clark, we basically, the grass does get stressed, gets a lot of wear and tear at Neil Clark. So what this will do will also help us take some load off of those 4 existing fields.
Is there anywhere else in the Unifor that has anything that compares to this?
We probably... Morganton has the Catawba River Soccer Complex. Lenore has a complex. Probably they don't have as many fields as we do. When we were first designing this, we were when it was first built, we were the only soccer complex between Winston-Salem and Asheville. And we get a lot of. And one unique thing we get a lot of requests from other clubs from those same areas to come and play in Hickory. Due to the driving, just to save those costs. So we are what's called a neutral field location site. So we get a lot of non-city, non-CBYSA teams that want to come here because it's a central location. If you've got a team from Charlotte that has to play a team out of Asheville or Hendersonville, so to cut down on that drive, they'll contact us and we'll work out an agreement where we can make one of our fields available for them, just helping both of those associations out. That's just an example. It comes up really every fall and spring season.
Well, it's also a facility that our people deserve, the young soccer players, and it's the kind of facility that young parents and potential young parents look at in a city. I make a motion that we approve this purchase agreement.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Patton. Mrs. Fox. Second by Mrs. Fox. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's unanimous.
Next department report, I'll ask the city's code enforcement supervisor, Mr. Bobby Baker, to come to the podium. As you all will recall, several years ago, City Council wanted to make a concerted effort in code enforcement and created the code enforcement entity in the police department. It has since expanded a little bit in staff, and annually we asked Mr. Baker to come to City Council and give you an update on the efforts of the enforcement unit. Mr. Baker.
Mayor Wright, Council, Mr. Beering, Mr. Crone, thank you for letting me speak tonight. And even though this is the annual report, I would like to say that we are going into our 6th year, and time flies when you're having fun. I'd also like to mention that we, as a unit, appreciate the political will that both council and city management has extended to the unit, because with the task that we have is sometimes unpleasant, and it takes a lot of effort to get things done. So we do appreciate that as a unit. The presentation will focus on fiscal year 2012-2013, but we'll also preview some trends that are coming up in the near future. Performance measures are the first thing that we look at, and I guess in any city department, those numbers are something that measures your success. Actually, in what we do, the performance measures are a little difficult to interpret, simply because from the beginning we knew that every year that they were going to increase to a point that we hoped that they peaked, and then just simply from the presence of the code enforcement unit that those numbers would start to decline, that people would start taking their own incentive to abate their issues without us having to actually create violation letters and make them do so. So you will see that in 2012 and 13, the numbers are not as high as they were in the previous years. There are some contributing factors to that as well. Number one being that we were going through almost a rebuilding with our team last year. We had some early retirements, and of course our folks take a little bit of time to train to get them proficient at what they do. But we still had a very successful year. The number of cases, 553. Minimum housing cases, we'll bring that up a little bit later. We had 72. Nuisance cases, 481. The 211 cases per officer is actually up from the previous year. So the officers that were on duty were actually carrying more cases simply because they had to, but our personnel was down a little bit during the year. The most important number that you see up there is the 96%. That's a very, very important number. And we'll see in a couple of slides later on that the 96% represent all of the cases that we deal with that are owner abated. That is a great deal of savings for the taxpayer of the city of Hickory. And I'll come back to that number in just a little bit. Now, this is just a demolition comparison. We do a myriad of things as far as what our task actually is, but the most visible thing that we do, and probably the most impact, are the demolitions. Even though that we have helped, our unit has been a model unit within the state and has had a lot of recognition, and we have helped a lot of units get started within the state. The unit that we use as a benchmark is the Concord Code Enforcement Unit. They have double the officers that we do. They have a similar protocol for what we try to operate under. And the comparison of demolitions is, of course, ours is on the left, theirs is on the right. In the 5 years that we have been at the police department, there's been a total of 176 demolitions. Now, you'll see that the percentage there of owner abated is 97%. The one in the previous slide was 96%. This is just the demolition aspect. You also see that Concord's owner abated percentage is 65%. Their budget for demolitions is over $100,000 a year. Ours is $20,000 a year. And that's a good thing in a way, in the fact that it gives us a great deal of incentive to make absolutely sure that these demolitions are owner abated. It takes a little bit longer to do that sometimes, a little bit harder to do, but we've been able to accomplish that. Again, these are demolition trends, and this is just a quick visual of what they're doing. Percentages are kind of hard to extract, so these are just actual numbers. Residential, you see, continually went up. They came down last year from sheer numbers. The commercial demolitions that you see, and that is a number that last year we had 7 commercial demolitions. Out of the total number of demolitions, that was 16%. Last fiscal year we had 5 commercial demolitions, but it was a total of 22%. So our percentage is actually going up from the commercial side of it. Owner abated, still very high, 97%. City abated, again, just a visual cue. Commercial demolitions, as we've said, our percentage from 2011-2012, the 7 demolitions, 16% of the total number of demolitions. Last year, it was 22% of the total demolitions. Very important statement that every one of those, 100%, have been owner abated. Commercial demolitions average somewhere around $30,000 every time there is an abatement. They've gone extremely high in some instances. Every time that we can get the owners to abate those is a success in itself, because that can eat a budget up in a hurry. And quite honestly, as far as first responders, as far as the detrimental aspects of those buildings, commercial buildings that have decayed, that are deteriorated, that are a hazard to life, are something that we have got to get rid of. We've got to get them down. And even though they take a lot longer in the process, preparing to send out the paperwork, it's something that we do focus on, and we will continue to focus on. Calls for service. This is fairly interesting. It's something that I personally am pleased with, because it represents everything that we do. Anything that is nuisance, whether it's minimum housing, whether it's EPA issues, whether it's health and safety issues, these are how we generate our calls. 43% of those calls come from the citizens themselves. 26% of those are from law enforcement. Now, that percentage has grown from last year fairly substantially, and that's also a good thing, because that means that our police officers are very aware of what we do. We work very well together. A lot of times that when they ask us to look at a property, there is criminal activity involved. So we're having a great deal of success working in a combined effort with them to work in that area. 13% is from the fire department. We try to work in every case, because most of the times when we have issues there, it is a life safety issue. We need to take care of those buildings as quickly as possible, or any other issues that we have. And then 18% is proactive. There's just certain areas in the city that if you're not proactive, it doesn't get done. So we're going to look at the photo library. And one of the things that we wanted to reiterate in this is, I know you get a lot of calls from your constituents, and the complaint is generally from a nuisance aspect. And the complaints usually come in that things are not happening as quickly as they think it should. What I'd like to emphasize is that we have to strictly go by whatever is in the Hickory City Code, or the process that is given to us through general statute, through North Carolina Building Code and North Carolina General Statute. One example for a nuisance call would be tall grass. And it's very specific. Some people want you to come out and take care of these and not realize what's actually in the code. Just as an example, it has to be less than an acre. It has to be over 12 inches, over 50% of the area, which means that if you have 40% of the lot and it's 12 feet tall and the rest of it's perfectly fine, there's very little we can do about it unless we can determine that it's just an overall nuisance for the community. When we start the process, we get the call, we go investigate, it takes a couple of days, we generate a violation letter. They have a minimum of 10 days to abate. We can't do anything within that 10 days. We have shortened the process by revamping our letters, and we've shortened that by about 15 days overall, but we still, when we send the initial letter out, we go ahead and put a hearing date on that. If they don't abate the violation within those 10 days, they already have a hearing date in that initial letter, so that saves anywhere between 12 and 15 days. They will come to a hearing if they don't abate it. By Hickory City Code, they have 15 days after that hearing to abate it. All in all, it's 30 days that they have. If they do not abate it on that initial letter, they usually have about 30 days. I know that seems like a long period of time, but quite honestly, the people that are repeat offenders know the game, and they utilize this process. This is going to, what we want to do is show you a variety of what we do and some of the aspects within what we are trying to accomplish. This doesn't look like a big deal, and I think because the photograph is taken so far away, but this was a commercial case. It was a cable supply company. They basically went bankrupt. There was a foreclosure. They left everything as it was. The building was in very bad condition. The outside had, quite honestly, would be an EPA situation in the near future. We were able to convince the bank to abate this particular case at the cost of over $20,000, and that's one nuisance case. So we are working with not only the owners, we're working with the banks, we're working with any kind of investment groups, property preservation companies, anything that we can utilize to get these abated by the owner. Residential lot in a residential neighborhood. Just one lot sitting in a residential neighborhood. Guy was a builder. He was quite honestly not from the city, not even really from this country. And he just utilized that lot as a dumping ground for his construction debris. That sat there for quite a while. We did have that cleaned up. This is a case some of you folks are familiar with. Unfortunately, this is a complicated nuisance case where the gentleman died in the car that you see up front. His wife was incontinent. She lived in the trailer that you can't see behind. This was a total mess, and unfortunately the children lived out of town. The owners of the property lived out of state. So from a legal standpoint, this was just a nightmare. And what we have tried to do is we've had to work on this very gradually to keep the city from having some legal responsibility for this. But we have been able to clear this about 60% so far. We're continually trying to hammer on this.
Just a little patience.
Yes. So it does take patience, and again, I want to say when your constituents complain, we're trying to do the best we can with the money that we had to utilize. Of course, graffiti is still ever present. I'll try to speed through these, but one of the things that we also do, minimum housing is an important thing that you never hear of, and it really never gets any publicity, but it's very, very important because these are life safety issues. This was a particular case where an owner had rental property. He wanted to make the property a multi-family unit instead of a single-family unit. He removed load-bearing walls. He put several families in. You can see the children there. And that is a main girder, and that's not a photographic trick. That main girder had that much deflection on it and was very, very close to failure. If they had not called us, that could have been a disaster. We came in, we made them get an engineer letter. The engineer required substantial structural change in the facility, and everything has been abated there. This is a particular case, a little bit more unusual, where the guy out of the state came in, bought a piece of property, took his tractor, shaved the lot, was a big mud field, and then started building a deck. You can see the deck was huge. It was going to be very hazardous. He did not have any permitting, didn't have anything from zoning, didn't have any silt fencing up. The neighbors were quite upset about it. We stopped the process, gave him a stop work order, made him clean up the nuisance aspect, which was the property. He had to take down the deck, he had to get the proper permitting, and he had to do it the correct way. So we're dealing with a lot of different scenarios here. This is commercial demo. Just basically, you see the building in the upper left-hand side. Lower right-hand side is what it looks like when it's gone, and that's just a grass lot. This was factory. We're all familiar with that as well. A lot of aspects going on with that. We had issues with airborne materials that OSHA, EPA, different kind of issues that we dealt with. This was another successful commercial demo that we had. This is, last year we brought up a map of the city with the flags in it showing the demolitions. We were trying to show this with a little more high tech, which is not what I'm really known for. But you can't see the yellow dots, unfortunately, on that, but that represents 176 demolitions. So you can see where the main portion of those demolitions, and it's in the core of the city. So when the city talks about that their goal is revitalization and to make this a better place, you can see the importance of what this unit does and the impact that we're having. 176 demolitions within that period of time is a lot of square footage, and it's a lot of opportunity for revitalization. Facts and trends. The interesting fact is that we have one demolition every 10 calendar days. It's not work days, it's every 10 calendar days, and that has been steady for 5 years. However, it is projected that both nuisance and demolitions will trend to a lower percentage of owner abatement. We don't like that, and that is very important for us, and we take a great deal of pride in owner abatement and the tools that we've been able to utilize to get owner abatement. But unfortunately, we see that as the economy doesn't seem to get any better, that a lot of owners of property are just saying it's not worth it. The property values have declined. People are just saying we're walking away from these properties, and we're trying everything we can to still keep up with them, to keep up with their train of thought, and we will continue to do so, but we do think that the percentage of owner abatement is going to decline. As far as vacant houses go, we have always had a lot of vacant properties. But one of the problems that we're seeing now is that we're having a lot of vagrancy in those vacant properties. And that is creating a lot of problems because that is a health and safety issue. When you have folks, especially in cold weather, when you've got folks in houses that don't have power, don't have water, they have children in these homes a lot of times, they're heating with a fire in the floor, or they're heating with propane, anything that they can get their hands on. It is something that we have got to keep in the forefront and take care of very quickly. Again, a lot of this goes back to our joint effort with the patrol, with the police officers, where they're seeing the vagrancy, they're calling us right away, and we're trying to take care of this as quickly as possible. The last one, complexity of cases, as I've just described. Every year that goes on, the banks, the folks that own the property, the property preservation companies. All of them are coming up with new ways not to do things, not to spend money, and to let them lay. And the complexity of these cases are getting harder every year for us to stay one step ahead of them. Doing fairly good at the time, and we will continue to do so somehow, some way. We did put up there a term called assistance triage and resolution. And one thing that we're seeing a trend for our unit is that we're having a tremendous amount of calls, and it's trending up. We're getting more calls on a regular basis of people that are just calling in where they really don't know where to go to get an answer, and they've a lot of times got very unusual questions and unusual problems, and they're calling us to help them resolve them. The good thing about it is we're so familiar with all of the departments in the city and how things operate that we never tell them it's not our job, that it's not within our purview to take care of this. We always help them. We always direct them in the right area, the right department, or we work together with those departments without just sloughing it off and, again, saying it's not our job. So that's something that we're also making sure that we give good customer service as a unit. That's it. Any questions?
No, y'all do a remarkable job, and it's really made a big difference in our city. And I thank you and your department.
Thank you.
I had one question about the owner who just continually never gets it right, never addresses it. You know, I have a particular property in mind that I've looked at for 15 years. And what does a community do with a property owner that's an absentee, that knows how to work the system, but drags down a stable street? That just continues. Is there no answer? There's no end to that?
Unfortunately, from our end, unless there is some other kind of resolution, it is something that we will continually do. And for instance, if they are on the habitual offender list or the chronic violator list, that also is cyclical, because it's 3 violations within the previous calendar year puts you on it for the next year, and you're good for 1 year. Well, they're on it for 1 year. Normally, they go ahead and take care of it during that year, but then when the next year comes up, they're off of that list again. So it's just one of those things that as we go down the road, we will fine-tune our processes, and we'll bring forward to City Council things that we see that hopefully we can all work together on to stop, because what you're saying is an issue that we see on a regular basis. And those people do know the games, and they are the chronic violators.
I also had another question, and I assume that this passed the legislature about demolition and being able to put the debris at the back of a lot. I don't know where they got with that. Did it pass?
It did.
Because my question to you would be, is that going to burden your unit to police how these people put their waste at the back of a lot?
No, ma'am. Actually, that's really nothing new. In the past, it has always been appropriate. If it was material that was non-deteriorating, you could still compact it. As long as you met certain conditions, you could still put that in a demolition site. It basically, the new criteria in that was that now they have to register that with the county tax records, so that someone coming to buy that property 10, 15 years down the road will know that there's construction debris buried there. We police that. They have to have demolition permits before they start anyway. And if we catch them doing that without the permits, they stop and they have to get them. But we always inspect those demolitions anyway. So.
Well, I was sitting here also thinking about your partnership with the police and how well, when we've moved this unit to the police department, how well that partners with community policing, because the policemen in those packs get very acquainted with an area and see things that the normal person might not see. And I agree with Jill. I remember when we first started this discussion, and my hat is off to your group. You have done a fantastic job. I check on some of these properties in a couple neighborhoods, and there was one real problem property over in Green Park that you stayed after. It took some patience with that, but I went by there the other day, and the owner has abated his issues. Now, it might not be to the specification of the neighborhood, but it's not anywhere near as bad as it was.
And that is one thing that's important to note as far as your constituents is that we can only make them abate that to minimum standards.
Yeah.
So, and that minimum standard is the same whether it's in one locale or another locale. So, again, that is something that we can go so far. But
now that's a minimum standard. That's a state standard, right?
No, ma'am. The nuisance would be from the Hickory City Code of Ordinance.
Oh, okay.
And if it has building issues, then that would be from the state level. Yes.
Bobby, what percentage or what number, just off the top of your head, do you think that there are out there of people that are beating the system, per se?
It's as far as the percentage of the people that we deal with, it's small, but the number of cases, it's the percentage grows because the people that know how to beat the system are usually the people that own a lot of the properties. Rarely do we find, we do find people that just abandon properties, and that would be if it's a bank-owned property that, for instance, we had one from the Bank of Miami, and they just basically said, we're going to write this off anyway, so we don't care. So we have to figure out a way to deal with that. But as far as nuisance goes and these repeat offenders, quite honestly, I could name 7 or 8, not a percentage, but 7 or 8 individuals that are 15, 20% of our work as far as the nuisance aspect goes. So, again...
How many properties are we talking about, do you think, just roughly?
You're probably looking at 50 to 75 properties. And it is a repeat. Now, the good thing about it, we are seeing some of those properties being developed slowly.
So all of those are still active cases?
Yes. And it is transforming, Helen. Some of these people have filed bankruptcy. Some of these people have been foreclosed upon, and now those properties are going through the process of being reacquisitioned. So we're going to be able to deal with that now because the people that are acquiring these properties, that has some value to them. So we're going to be able to deal with those properties a little bit better. So it is, and that was the whole point. This is ever evolving. Every month I see something new, and I thought I had seen quite a bit, but there's a new trick in every bag.
It's an interesting discussion that y'all are having because it's almost exactly the discussion we had as staff, and we recognize that as this evolves, we will come back to you all with some adjustments and tweaks to your ordinance and to some other things that Bobby's kicking around, to fine tune it now that we've been, and it's actually kind of evolved every year for the last 5 years, so we'll continue to do that. Some of it is code related, though.
It's quite impressive that we're the example for other places also.
Quite a few places. Just in the last week, I've had 2 additional, Burlington and Troutman, call to see how we do things and whatnot. So that is something that makes our folks feel pretty good. But again, if it weren't for you people standing behind this unit, I can tell you, and that's my number one thing that I tell these, if you do not have a council and city management that has a political will to stand up for this, it won't work. So.
Well, I think that many of us understand the high rental rates in a lot of these neighborhoods, and we understand the fragile nature, and so it becomes apparent that we have to keep this beefed up in these areas, because the folks that live in good neighborhoods, just because they have some absentee landlords, that they don't deserve that. The whole neighborhood, and it spills over. It can drag a neighborhood down. And I think you've just done a commendable job since we made this move to the police department.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd like to appoint or nominate for appointment Jane Everson to the Library Advisory Board. Any other appointments?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's carried. Matters not on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if you all would consider on your appointments the league meeting, which is coming up in October, you all need to designate a delegate and an alternate for the annual business meeting. Of course, that meeting is here in Hickory.
And that means they need to be present for the voting session only, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's the requirement.
Yep.
Do you know when that session is?
It's
Sunday afternoon?
yes, it's at the very beginning of the conference.
Mr. Guess, are you going to be at that meeting?
I plan to, yes, sir.
I nominate Mr. Guess as our...
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mr. Wright, second by Mrs. Patton.
I get to vote.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That abstention counts as a yes. Now we need an alternate?
You need an alternate, correct.
Okay, I'll nominate myself as the alternate since I think I'm going to be there. Got a second from Mr. Meisner. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay. General comments. A couple things last week I wanted to mention. Mr. Burry and Mr. Meisner and I met with representatives of Lenore Ryan University. I didn't think about you all being here tonight, but we want to create an atmosphere where Hickory is more of a college town. And people say LR is Hickory and Hickory's LR, and they think of us in the same sentence. You know, the city of Hickory was 18 years old when LR was founded. And now LR is ripe old 112 years old. So we sort of grew up together, and although we've had very close ties over the years, I think we need to be more of a college town. I don't see a downside to that. And if it helps LR get students and it helps our merchants sell merchandise to students, I don't see how that's anything but a win-win. So Mr. Meisner, as an alum of LR, has agreed to be our primary liaison with the university. And the university is identifying likewise someone to be the primary liaison. And who knows, some of you out there, some of you students, might be asked to serve on our town and gown, college town committee, whatever we decide to call it. Secondly, last week we proclaimed, we had a resolution concerning the 50th anniversary march and the I Have a Dream speech. That was a momentous time in the history of this country, and your council felt that would be appropriate, that we have a resolution that's a permanent record. That resolution has been framed and placed in the Ridgeview Library. Any other general comments?
Just that the concerts start under the sails again Friday night. Come down and enjoy.
I thought we had a very successful legislative event last Thursday. I compliment the City Manager's Office and Yacht